morning, video games. Welcome to Filthy Casuals, a podcast about video games hosted by three very kind and extremely knowledgeable boys. Thank you very much for joining us. My name, if you even care, is Tommy.
It's not like anyone's ever asked.
Joining me, as always.
That's right. It's your favorite little robot. It's Ben Vanel here, and rounding out the trio, it's the man who lives in the United Kingdom. You know him. You love him. It's Jimmy Savile.
No,
Guys, I thought
tempted.
you'd be excited that I booked a new guest host.
Hey.
Surely,
You need to do more research before you bring anyone. Luckily, he's correctly dead. But me, I'm alive. I'm the upgraded model. I'm Adam Knox Pro
Whoa.
over here.
You do it even more efficiently? Is that why?
I'm a separate thing.
Oh, okay.
I just end up costing way more.
Oh, yeah.
Not hot off the press news, but something that's happened overnight our time. Adam, did you check this out live? The PS5 technical presentation.
I did.
They gave it the code name of for some weird reason, even though there was absolutely no question what it would actually be.
Yeah, I watched it live on my phone standing near Big Ben.
Nice.
Which was pretty cool.
Yep.
And then until it got to the point where they said the price and I was like, oh, well,
Yeah.
I'll have to fucking go and steal Big Ben, which is
Yeah.
actually the name of the bell. That, it really blew me away. It was only like, 7 or 10 minutes or something like that, this
9,
technical presentation. The guy, Mark Cerny, who's like the head of technology at PlayStation, who is a very technically minded person and was laying it out very presentational, very much internal business meeting style of tone to this thing.
So many weird things in this presentation that we have to unpack. I feel like I could gladly spend the entire hour just on this presentation.
Me too.
First things first, just to kick this off, this MF looks like Tom Petty. So that was...
Yeah, he looks like Tom Petty.
That was freaking me out.
I have to Google Tom Petty.
He looks like Tom Petty, and he sounds like in Ready Player One. Basically, it's like the guy who creates the game, and then he's dead, and he leaves the game to everyone. He sounds like that guy. It's like a really softly spoken, sort of restrained, very pleasant, mild-mannered sort of guy. And
it was weird. It's such a weird way of presenting it.
I like it as an alternative to the we've got the most powerful console, the blah, blah, blah,
Sure. I think there's something about the tone of this where I was saying to you guys in the chat, it felt like in the sci-fi dystopian movie when they go into the evil corporation. This would be like the video that's playing in the lobby, and it's like him describing the technology of how they upload your brain into the computer and how good it is. I think it's just the way that the tone of it was so in that kind of wheelhouse that in the back of my mind I was like, okay, I see what's going on here. This machine's evil and it's going to kill us all. I know how this plays out.
This machine will destroy your bank balance.
Yeah, luckily if this is the machine that rises up and takes us over the PS5 Pro, very few people are going to have it in their homes.
Yes.
We'll probably make it through because I was pretty blown away by how unnecessary they made it look and how expensive they made it be.
Well, the other weird thing with the Prezzo was that the first 3 minutes out of 9 were just recapping what the PS5 does.
That was the weirdest bit. Yes.
It's like, it has ray tracing. It has good graphics. It has fast load times. And we're showing you the same 1 or 2 games over and over again to demonstrate this.
Yeah.
Because there are no exclusive games.
They showed the whole library. I wouldn't be surprised if that's in there, partly because they want to be like, hey, look how good we are at computers, but also the PS5 kind of seems like, even though they've jacked the price up repeatedly since launch, seems like a hell of a bargain if it can do all of that next to this thing now. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Sure, but then
You gotta
they did that at the start. They were like, check out how good the PS5 is. But then the whole rest of the presentation, they were doing these like, once they really got into what the PS5 Pro can do, they did these like side-by-side comparisons, and they were like, look at that on the left. Look how choppy that looks. And it's like, that just seems like that. I'm amazed that no one at any point of putting this presentation together kind of stepped in a very like corporate manner and went, even though we're trying to get people to upgrade to the new thing, you can't.
There can't be anything
like,
negative about our own products.
Yeah,
that seems
not
like
massively bad, but just like a weirdly disparaging couple of moments about the current tech and how like bad it sort of supposedly looks alongside. Which it's like, of course, it doesn't look as smooth, but yeah.
They were couching it in that thing of like, people have been pushing the system as hard as they can, and like, we're getting incredible graphics out of it, but you know, players are having to make the choice of performance or fidelity, and they said something like 75% of people go for performance modes, which I thought was interesting that they've got that stat.
Yeah, me too.
Look, again, watching it on my phone near Big Ben, chiming away
near
I don't think it
Clock
was,
Pro.
Yeah. Near Watch Pro.
Yeah.
The differences were difficult to spot on my phone screen, I'll tell you that.
And like, honestly, showing frame rate stuff in a digital video, it's like, that's always going to be impacted by, your own internet and how fast that kind of stuff loads. But then also, like, when they really hammered home some, like, frame rate drops in Ratchet and Clank, I was like, I never experienced stuff that bad in that game. Like this.
Well, did you play the ray tracing mode or anything like that?
Maybe I played it in performance mode. I don't know. I do play most games now in graphics mode. Like I'm playing Star Wars Outlaws in graphics mode, and I think I made that switch a while ago. But I don't know. I haven't seen the kind of terrible drop in frame rate that they showed off.
I think it's not so much that it's terrible. Typically, it's that the
it's just
expectation of
right?
performance has risen.
Right.
So look, their pitch of this is, hey, play games with good graphics and at 60 frames per second, which cool, but again, that was the pitch of the PS5 when it launched, and kind of was the case because also half the games more than that they showed during this are PS4 games. Like the ceiling is now higher, which means that developers will push closer to that ceiling.
Yep.
Unless they're like prohibited from doing that with some sort of internal, hey, if you're developing a PS5 Pro mode, it needs this and this and this.
Yeah.
Like there might be those stipulations there. I don't know. But especially when their whole thing is like pushing towards that. But yes, it does seem like, I remember when the PS4 Pro came out. I mean, we would have been doing this by then. It seemed a bit more, it made sense more.
Was it not? Was the PS4 Pro 4K and the PS4 wasn't? Or there was some? It felt like there was some kind of actual difference in what it could do, rather than just a faster GPU and a bigger CPU.
Yes.
It did
4K
seem like
was
a bit
the big,
more,
at least marketing thing, but it didn't end up that most games were able to achieve that on it. But like literally just TV output had changed during the PS4 and the Pro coming out. They'd switched from 1080p to 4K being the thing that people were getting.
Right.
And that made sense, especially when it's a Blu-ray player as well, and it could play, I believe, like the UHD Blu-rays. But it had the gap in technology, graphics technology between 2013 and 18, or whenever the PS4 Pro came out, maybe it was 17, was slightly wider and made more sense to bridge than this does now from the PS5, especially when the price is as high as it is. It's $700 US dollars, £700, 800 euros, and like 1,200 Australian dollars, and it doesn't come with a disc drive, so that's on top of that if you want to get that.
A stand.
No, vertical stand sold separately. Don't put it in the picture then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Like it even if I think with the PS4 Pro, even if you hadn't been able to see the worth in it or the merit or, you know, feel like you needed one, 4K and ray tracing, they were like very real things that you could at least point to and go, these are in it, and you can decide whether it's for you or not. This kind of all they're really saying is like, it just all looks a bit. It just all kind of looks a bit better. Yeah.
And ray tracing, wasn't in the PS4 Pro. That was like a PS5 thing when they started launching that.
Right.
But it.
Would you like to hear what the pricing was with the PS4 and the PS4 Pro? I know obviously inflation, like, you know, that's going to change the sort of how it relates to current day prices. But the PS4 in September of 2016 cost $299 US.
Australian or US.
Yeah. In November of 2016, the PS4 Pro cost $399 US.
Okay, so 30% more.
Yeah.
33% more.
Yeah.
Whereas this is 50% more-ish from the launch price of the PS5, which is now lower than the current price of the PS5.
Right.
Yeah.
And like the thing I was saying, at the time the PS4 Pro was an unnecessary sort of enthusiast thing, which this also is, and they are being clear about that like, you know, this is for people who want this high level of performance or whatever, but approaching a price where like, well, if people care that much, then like you're really upselling them to a PC that you're also putting all of these PS5 games on typically.
Right,
eventually.
right, exactly. It's not like you have a like, because the PS4 had a pretty good exclusive library. Certainly the PS3 did, but like, you were selling like fantastic performance on the 30 games that you love on this platform. Whereas, you're right. This is like a prohibitively expensive upgrade to play 5 or 6 games.
It's a hell of a lot of money.
It just feels like if you're rolling out something like this, it kind of has to be timed around a game coming out. Like the PS4 Pro launched alongside Spider-Man. Not that was like the most graphically intense game, but it is something that if you're a Sony day oneer, you go, okay, I'm looking forward to that game. I do want to play it in the best possible format I can.
Yeah.
I may as well. I've got the money. I tend to go in on these.
I can trade my old one in.
Even the Switch OLED they launched alongside Metroid Dread, which again isn't like a thing that they deliberately made to show off that new screen, but it gave you something to be able to go, okay, I'll get these both day one, and I'll have like a new game to experience on this new screen. Whereas the whole video was just like relying on you wanting to go back and replay The Last of Us Part 2, which if you're in enough and the sort of person that they are marketing this towards, the PlayStation diehards, you've played all these games already.
Absolutely.
So just to quickly correct that, it came out 2 years before Spider-Man, the PS4 Pro.
Did it?
And at the time, it came out in 2016, which is earlier than I sort of think of it as.
Right.
But
I had this memory of it. Maybe they launched. But I'm getting confused. I think there was like a
probably a
special
pack
console.
in.
There was a Spider-Man like console.
So there weren't really any going concern games around the time of launch. There was like Uncharted 4 and Ratchet and Clank and The Last Guardian had come out, but not all of those got pro patches, and like they were spottier and they took a while. Like it's not like the PS4 Pro was like this incredible thing and this is like falling below it, but it as an unnecessary thing, it even was a little more appealing back then, you know what I mean, to me at least. But this one, so there's a list of games here that they have put out that will have pro support with more to come. I'll read them quickly. Alan Wake 2, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Demon's Souls, Dragon's Dogma 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Gran Turismo 7, Hogwarts Legacy, Horizon Forbidden West, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, The Crew Motorfest, The First Descendant, whatever that is. I have no idea what that is. And The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered.
First Descendant is, I believe, a free-to-play online shooter.
Okay, right. So there's a bunch of like good games there, but also that have been out for years, and half of them are available on the PS4 as well. And just, it's just a weird, a different time where a PS4 to 5 to Pro now are kind of very PC hardware type of thing, in that like you can have your PS4 from 2013 and be able to play a ton of those games.
Yeah.
Not all of them, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's just a peculiar thing that, again, it's for specific people who have the disposable income and don't mind and would prefer to have a console and want the best one and all of that. Like, it makes sense this is for, but I just don't think there's as many of those people as makes sense.
I've seen, among the loud, active communities on the internet are obviously minority portions of those communities in real life, but they're often the most passionate and the most tapped in. And most people I've seen on Reddit and Twitter and stuff talking about this from a gamer's consumer perspective is they're all saying that this is insanely expensive and unnecessary. Like, it's not that just seems to be the majority of the visible response, and that can't be good for Sony. I don't know that they can afford to lower the price or anything, but it just seems like a wild miscalculation of where their consumer base is at. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe that is a noisy minority of people who are want to complain about everything, but I don't know. Because the Portal peripheral thing sold pretty well. Yeah. The PSVR 2 conversion adapter thing sold well. Like, it does seem like everything they're making is still selling pretty well, but I don't know, this just seems insane.
Yeah.
It's just not for us, but again, we're pretty tapped in,
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
And like,
I would like one if I could afford one.
That's the thing. There's very few people who could buy something like this and legitimately call it a business expense.
Yeah.
And I do not think I can financially support my business if I make this investment. So
we might be over leveraging ourselves if we were to.
It's just.
But again, when at the start of the year they went, we don't have all that much coming out. And then, hey, we'll announce this new. If there was like a bit more tangible stuff on the horizon, even that looked like it would be making use of this, I could be tempted.
I could see in a year if GTA 6 comes out and it's got a great, good-looking, fast frame rate mode on this thing, and it's not on the PC as well, and right. But that's way down the line, and I don't know, man. Like, I've played all the games that I want to play out of that list, and Dragon's Dogma 2 ran like shit half the time, so it's cool that might be fixed.
That's true.
That'd be great, but I played it earlier in the year, and so someone who is willing to drop £700, which is a lot of fucking money. On this, I feel like might be tapped in enough that they also got around to it by now. But also, mate, I don't know. They must have some spreadsheets fucking somewhere. But Sony have fallen victim to the hey, we're the king of the castle of the console wars arrogance before. Mm-hmm. So
I mean that's the thing, isn't it? Like we've talked about this before, even just in terms of like main consoles in each generation, the stuff that gets shown off and what seems so appealing about the consoles is kind of relatively short-lived because developers try and kind of push it to the limits. So you do end up pretty quickly with stuff that is, maybe running at a lower frame rate, or so the promise of like what it can do, it's like, it can do that stuff, but then developers try and go as far beyond that as they can and really push it to the brink. So you're actually sweet spot where you're getting something that is just, the console is just like kind of cooking along and giving you a fantastic graphical experience is truly pretty limited. Like, which is why, like, for me, like the PlayStation 5 for the most part of owning it has just felt like I've got a PS4 Pro because I'm mostly just playing PS4 games at the highest possible level that they can run at, and that feels great. I kind of don't have any problem with that because it's like, all right, there's still good games.
I just haven't minded that much. Like Alan Wake 2, out of this list, Alan Wake 2, Dragon's Dogma 2, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. I played those 3, and yeah, Rebirth I put on graphics mode because the performance mode was too low resolution.
Yep, same.
You know, I could tell it was at a lower frame rate, but didn't really mind with that. Dragon's Dogma 2 kind of ran bad. Alan Wake 2 kind of ran bad sometimes. But
there's also
okay.
we've also talked about the issues with people developers having to account for the shittiest current Xbox console that's available,
Right.
and that really stretching what they're capable of doing. Like some teams aren't capable of making a game that has such a broad compatibility, and it's in other cases I'm sure it's hindered the overall development of games. And so having to extend, what you're able to get your games to run on, or the restrictions that they're able to deal with will now extend. Well, it just won't extend across all the consoles because there won't be an install base of PS5 Pro users to justify it. People are still buying games on the older Xboxes and PS4. Like, it's just, I think we're in a weird point with the console generations where, and we've talked about it, there's too many active, there's too broad a spectrum of active consoles for them all to be supported, I guess.
And every game's basically a PC game now, where they've got so many things to account for. So like the idea for this seems to more so be, hey, we'll raise its capability so much, or to the point where it is simpler for games that, are built for a PS5 to then run with the full graphics mode at 60 frames per second. That's what they kept saying during this thing is, we'll basically remove the choice of having to choose one or the other. We'll give you the frame rate and the graphics. That's the whole sort of pitch here, which, like, cool, but you're asking a lot of money for it.
I hate having to make that choice, but if it was a bit less and there was more on the horizon, then I probably would be tempted. But
it just makes me think like, oh, so you didn't build the PS5 properly. If I, the user, has to make that choice, the whole point of, and you've said it like so many times, Tommy, the point of a console is that you don't have to like compromise your experience. You just get an experience. That's the experience everyone who's playing this gets. About it, And I think it's just like, oh, okay, you didn't build in enough future-proofing for the PS5.
I mean, and, it came out 4 years ago, so there's no way you can build technology for too much future-proofing, I think a lot of it is to do with players' expectations now as well. Especially because it came out at that weird intergenerational thing where so many games were those PS4 games, so they could pretty easily get them to run at 60 frames, and people started to really prefer that. And so now people are like making those modes when they wouldn't have in the past because people expect it now. Like, I don't think Sony and this seems like it's really cool hardware. Like, it's cool that they're able to make good looking graphics. You know what I mean? I'm not against that sort of thing, but Sony with their hardware as well, they put out the PSVR 2 nearly 2 years ago now, I guess, and have all but fucking admitted that it's dead. It's fucking Shelley Miscavige right now, sitting up in the wherever she's hidden.
Oh yeah.
It's
and she's not got any games to play.
Strange comparison, but it's.
Did you watch Going Clear recently, Knox? What happened?
They didn't mention the PSVR 2 at all during this, and haven't ever. And the Astro Bot people are like, there's zero chance that we'll ever do anything with the PSVR 2 with Astro Bot, and so that's dead. So I don't they've been making all this hardware seemingly just without talking to any of the software arm of PlayStation, and are just doing their own thing, and I don't trust that the support will be meaningful because they've shown it not to be with other hardware recently.
Yep, I think that's fair.
And all the support that they're pledging or whatever is that games will still be made as though they're just coming out on the PS5, but this one will be more powerful, so you can probably crank it up a bit.
Right.
That's the only pitch of this. And so at that point, it's like, cool, well, this is £800 for a fucking 3-year-long PC that if I had to spend more, yes, but not an enormous amount over that price to get a decent PC that will actually last longer too.
Yes.
That becomes more and more and more appealing every single day. So
I agree.
I don't know, man. It's just a weird little box they've made. Looks funny too. Yeah.
I am curious to see, because this happened, like in the past 24 hours for us. And definitely the initial response has been negative. I'm curious to see what happens if they have to do any PR panic stations in the next week, if they change anything, or if they're just going to be like, it's a luxury item for rich people, deal with it.
I think that's it, because the negativity is more like, oh, I am not interested. It's not like this is a pile of shit. This box doesn't make sense. What are you making? Sure. It's like, oh, you've priced me out of this. So I'm not negative towards a Lamborghini technically, but I'm not fucking interested, and I think they're insane because I can't afford one.
Yeah, and when I see someone driving one, I get angry.
Yeah, and I spit on it, and I'm running in front of it trying to get run over so I can get the insurance money. But
exactly. I'm going to touch someone's PS5 Pro and hope it burns my hand.
It's wacko that it doesn't come with the disc drive option either. Anyway, whatever.
Right.
Like, they've just made a really expensive thing that is so pricey that people kind of can't be interested. Heaps and heaps of people. I'd say the majority of people. And then the PS5 isn't getting a fucking price drop. Controllers just went up £5.
Yeah.
Everything is just so fucking expensive now that
my rent went up.
Right.
What am I supposed to do?
We are in the middle of everything is going up, and I kind of think that this is the perfect thing, that even though it's not it's not groceries, even though it is a luxury item.
Right.
It's it's a powerful computer, so it has to cost a lot. And I think there's just something about it and the timing of it, because the cost of it is yes, it's a high price and it's inflation and everything. I think there's just something about it that also just reminds people that we are just living in hell and that things are just going, you know what I mean? This almost feels like it in the last.
There's something pretty Marie Antoinette about it. Hey,
yeah,
it's become the real. It's the totem that represents everything that's currently going wrong with how we're able to afford things. Not that it's it's so easy to avoid. It's so easy to you don't have to buy one of these, but something even just remembering, the Nintendo 64 being $400, I think, here or something when it came out, which, we were little kids and that was so much money. But this just feels on I don't know if you adjust for inflation, where that lands on the scale, but this just seems so just off on this other planet of
there's not been a console other than the Neo Geo and maybe the 3DO and stuff back in the day. There have been maybe some, but that has cost as much as 1,200 Australian dollars before.
Yeah, I've seen the 3DO being thrown around a lot today as this is the comparison of
and look how well it fucking worked for that.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. The most appealing thing about this would be if it's significantly heavier than the PS5 so that I can use it to club away the people coming to my house trying to get my vegetable patch after everything inevitably burns down soon from how this has made me feel.
Hey, as a quick aside, can I just say, Adam, when you talked about jumping in front of the Ferrari before, it reminded me that
Lamborghini.
It was a Lambo.
Sorry. Oh, no.
The PS4 Pro came out in 2016, I think you'll find.
Fact check.
I saw a guy recently at a pub get bailed on mid-date, but in a way where she went to the toilet and just never came back. And I watched him just sit there for ages, waiting for this person to turn back up, and then just, we're kind of watching him and close enough that we couldn't all talk about it, but all just in our heads being at what point do you throw up the white flag? And then we just sort of see him just go, and he just books an Uber, goes out into the street. But then to wait for his Uber, he just stood in the middle of the street. And so it really did have this air of in the notes app to the driver, he's put, fucking floor it, mate.
Yeah.
Finish me off.
God damn.
Wow. Well, maybe he could have cheered himself up when he got home by playing a little bit of a game I like to call Astro Bot brackets 2024 close brackets.
Well, he could have. Do we want to talk about either Mario, we can talk about Astro Bot.
Everyone's here
Ben
for
just-
Astro Bot. It's
Ben
in
just
the
did a
headline.
Beautiful intro. Let's talk about the little bot.
Let's talk about the bot.
It actually wasn't in the order I'd written it down on my little notes here, and the PS4 Pro came out in 2016. The notes that I never mentioned or showed you haven't actually followed.
Yeah. You just all of a sudden, before we recorded, you were like kind of doing that thing where you read to yourself as you were writing, and I was like, what's this for? Where's this going?
Yeah, right. I didn't know I
This
was
is a
reading
weird
myself as I
short
was
story.
Yeah, you're doing that really slow, like, Astro Bot.
And I'm drawing him. That's why I'm talking so slow. I'm having to draw the whole little guy. Well, if I'd have been drawing Astro Bot, I'd have been feeling a sense of joy because that little guy, he's having a happy time and it's infectious.
He is a cute little bastard. So we look, not to jump ahead. We left last week on something of a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
You were debating whether it's appropriate to message a man whose sheets you're currently coming in every night to ask him if
I've copped a lot of weird flack from the first mention of my name today.
to ask if you can use his
Copping a lot of
PlayStation
weird
5.
flack is what this guy's sheets are doing too.
Oh,
Yeah.
baby.
That's what I do when I watch the Big Gig. I cop a bit of
Yeah.
weird flack.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I'm downloading lossless music.
Oh.
Anyway, I cop a lot of weird
Eat It.
Og Vorbis. But yeah, I wasn't sure that he's got a PS5, and I was like, oh, is that weird to sort of... I ended up messaging him. He didn't reply for a couple of days. He's on a holiday, I think is why he's not here.
Right.
And then when... was like, yeah, man, whatever makes your life easy.
Yeah.
Couldn't be more giving of his PS5.
Yeah.
I'm on
And
holiday.
brother.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like you
Leave me
can
alone.
ruin a PS5.
Brother, it's like a DVD player.
Yeah.
Turn on the light as well. Have you been in the dark the whole time? Come in the sheets, dude. Who cares?
So you've played the game.
I got the go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I got the download, and I've played every single ounce of Astro Bot to platinum level, baby.
Ooh, baby. Yeah, I finished it last night. I rolled the credits on this little bastard. I will be going back and I reckon I'll go for everything. I reckon I'll go find all my little boys in every
It was
level.
pretty fun.
Yeah.
What was the last game? I feel like there was a game that you guys both did that on recently as well. Was it Pikmin 4 or something like that?
Oh, I definitely
Well,
ate. Pikmin
Maybe
4
Ratchet
the
and Clank,
fuck up.
actually? Did you
I
guys
did,
both?
I did it for the last Ratchet and Clank. Yeah, I've
might
got
have
like
done it
one
for
last
that.
thing to get in Pikmin 4.
Hmm.
I have plans to do it with Mario Wonder. Every now and then I'll pick
Oh,
up
yeah.
Mario Wonder and just go back into the levels that I don't quite have everything.
I did
in
it
yet.
with Mario Wonder. I did it with Elden Ring. I put a lot of time into into this podcast.
my
Yeah,
work, my
yeah.
job.
I was going to say,
Well,
yeah,
and
exactly.
you know what? In the case of Astro Bot, it wasn't a lot of time. It was about 14 hours total that
Yeah.
it has been.
That's how
So-
much time I've put into Star Wars Outlaws, which is only a little bit longer than that. So that's
Right.
pretty reasonable for a platformer.
Oh, it's about a Mario-ish level. I feel
Yeah.
like that's about what
Yeah.
Mario Wonder would have been.
Yep, yep.
Certainly not like dissatisfied with it because the joy of this game is the level of rapid variety and fresh ideas and quick, like highly detailed but pretty quickly thrown away little moments that make it feel so like packed full of things that are really trying to entertain you.
Yeah.
in a super Moorish way that is so charming to me and like so doing that same thing that the best Mario games do of like this level of constant jumping creativity and these confetti bursts of like
Yep.
and literally a points of fresh unique ideas that, like, maybe you're not unique in the grand scheme of everything, but as this game is sort of throwing them at you, almost like WarioWare or whatever, you're just getting this barrage of these fun things that you wouldn't want it to be much longer than that, because the level of rapid, crammed in detail that's in this is a huge amount of the appeal.
Yeah, I think that's its like main appeal, or it's only it's only trying to do one thing. I feel like this game, like and that's not bad. But what it is trying to do is like entertain you with creative new ways for you to jump and climb. Is that
and punch
and punch and discover? I feel like that's it, right? It is like, how can we get you to have fun while you're moving through this 3D space? That's as simple as a platformer can be described, but that's what it's doing.
It's extremely Mario in its design in that way, where like especially the more recent like Odyssey and Wonder and the way that they've taken that same, it's cut from that very similar cloth, but with, I think, well, I guess the Mario games have this too, but Astro Bot just has it in this way that I kept being surprised by. It's the detail of the little critters hanging around and like the little tiny scenes that are in the corner of a level of like a couple of monkeys sitting there having an argument over a banana or whatever, that have these individual animations just for there, that if you could easily sprint by and miss it. But like if you take a look around all of these environments, there's so much animated detail that really I enjoyed.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much like movement and there's so much like energy and kinetic energy to the game where you don't even, Astro Bot doesn't even particularly move that fast, but it's such a fast moving game. Like when you punch an enemy, they like whip off the screen. It feels more like it's like being on an amusement park ride, where there's just like stuff kind of is popping up, and you go through an area and there's like a little tableau where a column like falls over and then another thing like kind of bursts up, and it's not like a challenging game to get to the end of. Like it really does want you to see all of it. And I think that I mean I didn't even really notice the difficulty level just because I was having such an enjoyable time playing it. And in fact, there are some little bonus level things that that are optional that pop up that are more geared towards being a bit tougher and a bit more like pure platforming challenge.
It's a pretty small handful, but there are some.
Yeah, right. And doing them, I kind of appreciate that they're in there, but I just found them way less enjoyable because they are just straightforward, like, here's this little thing where you've got to be really precise with your timing of how you're doing this and then doing that next bit. And they just lack that, that tableau and that feeling of like, being in this really fun, explosive cartoon where all this really over-the-top stuff is happening. Like every little action that you're doing a lot of Mario stuff where you're getting little power-ups that aren't ever used more than a couple of times throughout the game, but they all just have these like, very over-the-top animations. Like nothing just kind of happens. Everything happens with such, bombast and that like...
And like care.
Yeah, it's all done in a really like detailed way. The attention to detail is like you say, Nox, like, you may walk entirely past this entire section that is not like required to interact with for gameplay reasons or like clocking the level, but it's there. And if you stop and look at it, it's like just as well done as a boss fight. Like the whole experience makes, like a Super Mario Odyssey feel restrained. And that was like the most creative and interesting Mario game that had been made to that point, or at least the 3D one that I'd seen. This is like, what if that, but also every corner was filled with shit, and anytime you did something, it felt like someone was going to explode, and then they did explode.
Yeah, there's so much personality in all those animations that you're seeing around the place that... Yeah, that's a huge amount of the appeal, because I did find it easy, but fun still, because I always wanted to see what, like, and again, I'm just going to say animation again, because genuinely all of the animation, not just in terms of mechanically video game turner animation, but like the expressiveness of these characters and the fun ideas that are being animated there. But all of this
the levels
visual
all
stuff
have something. I mean, I think there's definitely there are a few things that this game does better than a lot of Mario games, and I mean, this is a dumb takeaway because I don't mean this to sound as reductive as it does, but as I was playing this, it did make me really excited to see whatever they are cooking up for the next 3D Mario, and especially thinking about it won't be on hardware as powerful as this, but on more powerful hardware than we've had for the last 7-8 years. But like the bosses in this, I think like the bosses in Mario games, they kind of tend to have a couple of good ones and then they repeat a lot of them, and like the bosses in this are all like really fun, like really inventive, like really expressive, even though they are just a lot of like tropey creatures of like, here's the gorilla one, here's the squid one, and he's got multiple arms, but they all kind of have something to them that's like sort of a bit more than I feel like Nintendo tends to put into their boss fights a lot of the time.
The personality of them in motion, I think, is at a really cool high level. Whereas, I agree that like the sort of on paper designs of some of it can be a bit like, why is he a gorilla? Why is he a squid? What's any of this? Like, there's not really cohesion between its original ideas versus like all of the sort of PlayStation stuff that's in there that obviously has cohesion because it's but like but once they're moving in front of you, they're so fun to watch.
And also seeing what the kind of hook of them is, like the what you've got to actually do, and then how that relates to like their kind of little personality that they've got, and just also the amount of it's exciting to get to a new batch of levels and see like what they all are, because again, I think a lot of the Mario games, they do tend to default to a lot of levels that are just like, this one's some blocks in the sky. And these, all of the mainline levels in this game, they all have a theme or a setting or a like something to them. They never just default to just being like, there's some shit floating in the sky, and you
even
just,
the ones that are like a bit like that have something to them where it's like, it's like the buttons from a PlayStation controller that you're jumping on as the platforms, or like the ice world is like, it's an ice world, but there's this little twist on it, or the penguins are having fun in the corner, or the seals are doing this, like that. And then the music is great as well. I really like all of the music in this game. It's super like jaunty and catchy and really suits it. And like, I feel as though I've downplayed that I had a lot of fun playing this too. Like, it wasn't super difficult, but it's a very satisfying game to progress through for me. Like, you're just constantly getting positive feedback from every interaction you're having with this world. Like, things are swooping around and the controller's vibrating all the time, and like everything feels like it's just trying to pump as much entertainment into you as
I mean, that's the thing, right, about this playing this game before this PS5 Pro announcement was like, the whole time I was like, man, I wish more stuff used this fucking controller in this way, because it feels great. And again, a bunch of this is stuff that's repeated from the Astro's Playroom, the pack-in game, which it's of course it's it's the same team, so that's fair enough. But it's all stuff that was like impressive when the feeling of being the monkey and having the little hands that you're grabbing onto the things with, and the trigger kind of stopping. It's like, it just feels great, and it's like, oh yeah, this is really one of the only things since that demo where. That's used it again, and it's just the exact same thing by the exact same team using the exact same character. Like it's a shame to have this announcement of this Pro thing where we're starting to iterate and move on, when it's like you're barely even using some of the best, truly like next level immersive, interesting elements of the base console.
I think that's partly down to like game designer creativity as well. Like it's been used a bunch for like the pressure of different triggers, or like a accelerator on a car, but this team has way more ideas than that. What I mean?
I guess
like they're throwing way more at it.
They're like they're very much incentivized to lean towards that stuff as well. Like, if you're a third party developer that has no like factor, in terms of what you're actually going for in your game. And like even some of the first party stuff, it's been more like story focused, I guess, which is hard to incorporate haptic feedback. But this is like a platformer, or I guess what else, like a more physical puzzle game is the kind of genre that lends itself to this kind of stuff being utilized properly.
Right, because it can have that variety built in a lot more easily too. Yeah.
Absolutely, and it's not like, you're not concerned about putting someone off or distracting someone from something else in the game. It's like, no, this is the entire game, and this only adds to the existing format of the game. So of course you'd lean into it, and it's great. And it was great in the pack-in game.
Yeah.
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 It's very cool. And like, oh, sorry. Hey, you go for it, Tommy.
Whoa. So gracious.
No, you sounded like you had more of a follow-on point.
I can go. Nah.
I've forgotten what I was going to say because I felt bad about the joking tone I used that came across too real.
We're in the same room, by the way, if you can't tell.
I think I was just like all of those things combined. Like, yeah, it's a very accessible game for any age, I would say as well. But then, especially for people of around our age, all of the PlayStation stuff that's in it, that's sort of the weird other level of this game, is that it's like this strange PlayStation mascot game now, where you've got these like Super Smash Brothers style trophies of all these like PlayStation significant characters of the past. Not all Sony, like half of them are Capcom, they're from Resident Evil or from whatever, but games that have been big along, the PlayStation series of consoles since. And like, I really liked how they did all that stuff. It's all just like, hey, remember this? But it's like, yeah, I do remember that. And then you gave it a fun animation that shows you really thought about what you were putting in here. Like, you whack each of these trophies and they have some reaction, and then you get like those little gotcha balls. The trophies are like the bots that you're rescuing in the stage.
So you're in these levels. You're finding, it's kind of a different number in each level, but those are your little kind of, in a Mario game, there'd be like the special coins or whatever that you get to a certain point of the game, and you might need a certain number of them to open this gate to get onto the next levels that are in there. And then, like half of them or whatever number of them are just little bots, and then the other half are, they're themed around these PlayStation characters or, history of gaming kind of characters in a very similar kind of Pikmin way, where they're never called like... Their name is never what the name of the character actually is. It'll be like, mysterious stranger or whatever. And so you've got this hub world that you're returning to from time to time, where they're all there hanging out. And I loved that. I loved, you get back and you sort of see this little desert that you're in kind of slowly get more and more populated with your little guys. And then there's kind of little challenges around the hub world that you need. And again, a very, very, very mild Pikmin kind of way. Like, you might need...
true.
30 of them to get you across this bridge, and so you kind of call on them, and then they make a little human rope for you to walk across, and then you're getting them you're buying them little items out of the gacha machine that relate to them from the game they're from, and this is all happening under the shadow of a gigantic PS5 that you're trying to restore, which is your little spaceship that's crash landed that you're hoping
that
to rebuild.
You're jamming the elements of it back into there, sort of like from the thing where it's like you had the SSD level or whatever, and then you jam them in with your hands in this like very uncomfortable way that would definitely break them if they were real technology. It really made me feel like I was smashing a PS5, but it's just like, it's all done with just that extra level of attention to detail that, not to give any of it away, because half of it is the fun of going, oh, it's that guy, or like, and then you interact with them, and it's like, that's a clever way of having something happen with that character, and it shows that they really paid attention to what that character is and what the game is about and all of that. It's none of it's just like. I'll use just a different example, but if it was an Xbox One, it's just Master Chief, and if you whack him, he just goes like, holds up a gun or whatever. Like, it's much more fun and thoughtful than that. And the little items that you get out of the gacha machine. I really like this
implementation too. I remember when we saw the trailer, I was a bit like, thought it was kind of whack that they're just flying around on a big PlayStation. In the context of the game, I love it. I don't have an issue with it at all. I think it is really well done. I would love to know any kind of lore about why there is this race of alien robots that all simp for old PlayStation IP. Like, the logic of it is kind of funny. The one thing about it though is that I think is like a slight shame is that, you know, this is all of the reviews and press about this game is sort of saying like Sony finally has their own little mascot. They've been trying for decades. They've, you know, I guess Crash is sort of theirs, but then Crash has been on everything for what, like a one that is just like a truly Sony centric, and they've got one now. They've got a platform game that is to the quality of Mario. They've got a franchise that is theirs, that is a mascot driven, and there's kind of something about the fact that the whole world and aesthetic of that is just based within the aesthetic of the PlayStation that is maybe a slight shame. Like, it doesn't really have any of its own identity.
Yeah,
Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, I think that's
I don't dislike it. I just think it's a bit of like a missed opportunity if they do more and more and more with this character.
Yeah.
You can't just have every one of his adventures be a trip down memory lane of PlayStation a little bit. Like,
it seems very unlikely to me that some kid who didn't care about PlayStation would see Astro Bot and be the least bit excited.
Yeah, and that is, I do dislike it. Like, that is one of the main things that I think keeps me at arm's length from this game, is that I don't really feel like Astro Bot, like, they've done as much as they possibly can to give him personality, or them personality, and to fill the world with personality. But I do feel like, yeah, it's a generic looking robot, and I do feel like that, yeah, the level design is fantastic gameplay wise. Everything that you interact with everything that like moves and changes. Like, there's a level, like you mentioned, a gorilla boss before, where in the lead up, it's like a construction level that is getting changed and, like, you know, is getting laid out almost by this gorilla, and it's, you know, it's great, and it's like got heaps of motion to it and interactivity. But it is like, then when you like just look at it, it's like, this could be in any game. This could be any third-party game. This could be from a, you know, like, it doesn't have that personality or that artistic style that like differentiates it from just like 3D platformer almost.
Yeah, I think it's just a bit of a missed opportunity that and I like all the PlayStation, like I said, I like all the PlayStation stuff that's in there. I kind of think that, for example, like, maybe if it had have been, instead of them flying around on a big PS5, they have their own, you know, just immediately like a little bit more like, I don't need a story, I don't need lore, but, you know, you're not in Mario games running around on the inside of an NES. And they do right. Nintendo do that stuff from time to time, but they kind of
they'll have
their
them
places.
Go back to like the 2D pixel Mario and all that sort of thing. Yeah,
they do that kind of stuff, but they still, you think about the world of Mario and you think about the world of Sonic, and they exist in these kind of like tangible places that you can kind of, you know, recognize as being, that's what their world is, that's where they're from. And I just think that it's a bit of a shame, this being like the first big mainline one, and that it's been such a success, that they maybe could have used that opportunity to start to bring in a bit more of that stuff. Because when you think of him, it's like, well, where are these guys from? Like, what would you say is the world of Astro Bot? Because this game is, it's a casino, it's a graveyard, it's an ice, it's just like, it's all just like video game level-y kind of stuff.
No,
and this
isn't one.
Yeah.
And like, even though Mario, I mean, possibly in a sort of Lord of the Rings way, where, well, Lord of the Rings seems generic because it was a big part of creating the genre as it is, but like, it's just turtles and little weird things and whatever. But you could draw a Koopa and recognize it's sort of still different to a turtle. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
There is
really have that.
A style like the original Miyamoto like drawing of Mario is so stylized. Like, that's not a real person. that's not a real Italian bloke. It is a creation, and like, it is kind of ridiculous that like, this one, which is literally not a real thing, has not has been done in kind of like, it reminds me of Sackboy. Like, it is just that silhouette, which it doesn't I don't associate with fun necessarily.
He is the exact same proportions, and everything I was saying, by the way, to be clear, I don't mean that as a criticism. Like, it doesn't bother. I personally don't find it to be a negative. I just kind of think it's an interesting design choice when they are really, with this game, trying to go like, and with having him be the pack-in game and everything, like, they are really trying to have him be like, here's our boy.
Yeah.
And it just is interesting to me that they haven't done a little more to go like, oh, we could, if people really take to this, then there's like more games, there's merchandising down the line, there's like, maybe a little series.
That's the thing, is I think this is like interesting in a more outside, like, meta business sort of a way or whatever. Like, I agree with it, but I'm not thinking about it at all while I'm playing it, to be honest. Like, the personality is there for me when it's in motion.
I really only thought of it in the context of knowing that I would be talking about the game on a podcast and have to have something more to say other than just, it's really fucking fun and I loved playing it.
Well, because that's part of the thing, is that part of what is fun about it, the fun is, in some senses, kind of a shallow type of fun, and it's super fun, and I loved it, and I chewed the whole thing up, but
and that's why, like I mentioned, like, it is all it is attempting is to be a really fun 3D platformer, and that's all it's doing, and that's great if that's exactly what you want. And like, obviously, a fun 3D platformer isn't going to attempt to, or probably shouldn't attempt to, teach you a story about a cycle of violence, or, cast new light on a marginalized group, or like any of the things that other games aspire to. It's not aspiring to that, but it is real, and Spyro is in this game.
You better believe it.
It's not trying to be anything other than a fun 3D platformer, and for me, 3D like, there are people who don't like walking simulators because all they're doing is like presenting a story to a first-person perspective.
Yeah,
and like, if you don't like that genre, then you're not going to like a good version of that game. And I
think it's the same as with Star Wars Outlaws with you last week, where it's like, that's a type of game that heaps of people are just like, fuck this, I'm done with it. And you're like, no, I still like it. You know what I mean? And it's
absolutely, yeah. And it's like, to me, and it like hits all of the weird idiosyncratic things that some people don't like about those open world games that I love and really get a kick out of. But this, I think, it's worth discussing. Astro Bot is worth discussing in a way of like, how could this game that nails its one and potentially only goal, how could this game be better? Which I think, like, you're right, it would be better if maybe there was some other layer of design or uniqueness or personality beyond, like you say, Nox, the in motion, in the throes of the game, creativity.
Yeah,
and I'm fine with it if there's not, because I like this thing, and it's
right.
In some ways a cheeseburger or whatever, but if you're a fucking food reviewer and you're like, this cheeseburger isn't the I'm trying to think of a fancy restaurant dish, but I'm too poor to be able to.
This cheeseburger isn't foie gras.
Foie gras, perfect. Exactly. Like, well, you're a fucking idiot, dumb shit reviewer then, because cheeseburgers are better. Like, it's I'm so happy for it to be a cheeseburger that comes along every few years and
I mean, even just the character himself, like in the past when we've talked about the other Astro Bot games, I've been a little like, he's a bit boilerplate. There's something about this where he just really has grown on me, and like, weirdly, for saying what I was saying about the series not really having its own identity. There is something about this game that I found very impressive in how familiar it felt firing it up, even though all we've had is basically a tech demo. Well, sort of two tech demos, really. I know that the
VR game was about the same scale as this, really.
True, but so there's that, and then there's the tech demo. So, like, really not all that. This is, like, the first, like, I guess, like, straight up console game not using a... not being a demo, not being using a headset or some
showing
funny
off peripheral.
a different thing. Yeah. But it kind of like when I fired this up, the first level of it and like the feel of Astro Bot and the little noises that he's making and the little enemies, this felt like a series that I'd been playing for decades. Like immediately it just hit this center of like, oh yeah, these little guys and these little ones have spikes and that's right. When you can do his little jet jump and that sort of zaps him. That's yeah.
You're right.
I'm right back in here.
That is like, it's all of like I said before, the gameplay is fantastic. I can't imagine a more fun and more creative 3D platformer. Like all of that stuff feels second nature. But maybe it is all the incorporation of like the PlayStation branded stuff as well. Because like I remember like in the VR game, it didn't have that stuff. Like it was about little robots getting saved, and then
it was a lot more for the PS5 because it was a pack-in. So it made sense that it was about PlayStation. But I don't mind it as a backdrop for some reason, because I got a kick out of like, oh yeah, it's that guy.
Yeah, it does work and they do it well. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, they almost definitely will do another one of these, and you can't do that same trick again of like, here's 100 different little PlayStation guys. So
I mean,
it'll be interesting to see how it. Yeah. I would love to see them do. And
they're putting out some free DLC soon with.
Yes. Oh. Yep. I would love to see them do a next thing where it's like, this game all takes place on the actual Astro Bot, home world. Maybe we see a little bit more of like where these guys actually exist and it's being invaded and a little less like where. I mean I liked the final boss battle. Like I think he's animated so well and he's got so much personality in actually like how you square off against him. But when you see him at the beginning of it, the big alien baddie boss guy is just like a 5-year-old's drawing of an alien. Yeah. It's the most like simplistic little green guy in a flying saucer.
I think that's true of the designs, and I think as fun as the game is as well, it's like key thing is that there's very few games that have this much like of a sense of joy the whole time and that creativity throughout them, like constantly and like chucking it away during this. But that tone of like joy throughout the whole thing is the one tone this game hits, and if it doesn't vibe with you, which I would wonder if maybe that's like the thing with you liking it a bit less, Ben, is that like it's doing this cartoonish joy that is like one very specific tone the whole time, but that mixed with the creativity, I'd love to see them apply to some other genre or whatever and like spread their wings a little.
I just think it's like I don't get a great deal of satisfaction out of just platforming. Like and especially when it is not particularly challenging. Like I really enjoyed Super Mario Brothers Wonder because it was so creative, but it also was quite challenging, and so it feels like you are getting a bit of a adrenaline rush from nailing a particularly hard level. Whereas you don't get that positive satisfaction feedback from you. Overcoming something difficult. Yeah. So I think it's just that. And like, I have fun while I'm playing it, but it's not something I have a particular urge to go back to. Especially when, there are a bunch of other games that either have even less required of you, but are more addictive or more-ish, or other games that are more challenging and incorporate, platforming as well. So it's just a personal taste thing. I would never claim to give this a bad review based on what they're attempting to do and whether or not they're succeeding at it, because I think it's a 10 out of 10 game in terms of what they were trying to do, I think.
Yeah. I also really love too, like in talking about the length of it, like there's something to be said too for like that 9 hours or whatever that'll take you to finish. That's all gameplay. This is my favorite genre of game. I love sitting down for a session and just knowing exactly what I'm getting, where, longer games, you can sit down to play it for a couple of hours and like an hour of that might end up being cutscenes or a side quest or games that are doing a lot of different stuff. Like you
get stuck on a boss that's too hard.
Yeah, you sit down because you sort of want something in particular out of this game in the hour-long window that you have, and you end up just doing some completely other different bit of it. Like this game is like there's about 30 seconds of cutscene at the very beginning, and then
Yep.
that all the rest of it is like you are playing a game for the entire rest of that time.
There's a couple of like flavor ones for like some of the sort of end levels, PlayStation themed levels in some of the worlds, and like, but it's all real short stuff, and that's the one of the best aspects of the game is that it is so short because it's so crammed in, and it's the right choice. If this had been dragged out more, then it loses a big part of its appeal, which is that just like speed.
Yeah, jump in and play.
New ideas at you.
Jump in and have fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Great stuff. Really fun game. Definitely a big recommend. Although, if you have a PlayStation 5, I have to imagine that you've already picked this up, if not have it firmly on the wish list.
Yeah. Yeah.
They do now. After our big reco.
Yeah. Tommy, do you want to talk about a little indie game that we both have been having a crack with lately?
Yeah, let's talk about this a little bit. So it is a game called Peglin. It was announced in that Nintendo indie partner direct thing a couple of weeks ago, and it was one of the ones that went up straight away. And it was also one that has been on the PC for a bit, and so people were pretty excited about it coming over because it's got a bit of a devoted fan base. So this game is a basically deck building pachinko machine.
Yeah, this is Peggle. If anyone ever played Peggle, or there was another ripoff of it made by the people who make Candy Crush, like Zorbus or something. Basically, Zimbo or something like that. You have a ball or a fireball or a special ball of some kind based on what you've been able to collect through your runs, and you have a static position where you're going to fire it from into your pegs. The peggles will disappear after they're hit. You get points from these, and in like literally Peggle, your goal is just to like destroy all of the pegs before you run out of turns, I think, from memory.
Yep.
And you can also acquire points, and so there's a high score system. But in this, in each individual level, as you destroy pegs, you get points. Those points are damage usually, and you have in front of you a series of enemies on a 2D plane, and you can target them. And after you've had one turn of Peglin, the points you accumulate are damage. They fire at the enemy that you've targeted, and your goal is to kill all of the enemies before they kill you.
It's sort of like, it looks a bit like Pitfall, where like the top sort of maybe quarter of the screen is this like battle scene, and then below the ground is all of your pegs and the Peglin stuff that you're doing down there.
That's right.
Yeah, and then over the course of a run, you're unlocking new orbs that might do things like each peg is worth double points, or some of them are bouncier, or whatever it may be.
You get a multi-ball.
Yep. There's different kind of pegs around the board that there's ones that you can hit that do critical damage. There's ones that you can hit that reset all the pegs that have been destroyed, because you can end up in a place where you've destroyed most of them, and so it's like impossible for you to really get any kind of decent score because there's like just nothing around for the orb to bounce off. So your
goal is not to destroy all of the pegs in this, unlike all the classic Peggle games. And then, in terms of like your progression, it's basically Slay the Spire. You start on a map and it starts to become branching paths. Some of them are battles, some of them are treasure, some of them are mystery. It's very similar to
Inscription?
Inscription. Thank you. Yes, Inscription. And there's a boss at the end of each level. There's only 3. Is that right? There's only 3 levels, or maybe they were in early access or PC when I was playing it. Yeah, 3 worlds.
Like a lot of these kinds of games, I don't know if they kind of weight it a little bit in your favor when you do your first run, but I feel like anytime I play a game like this, I have an absolutely glorious run that just goes forever, where I think, I'm the best at this game's awesome, and I'm the best in the world at it.
Yeah,
And then
I'm going to be at
for-
the national finals for
Yeah.
Peglin.
Yeah.
for pretty much every game, every run after that for a very long time, I just eat utter shit. So yeah, I think my first run I got to the end of maybe the second one.
Right.
But it's fun. It doesn't really tutorialize you really at all.
No.
So you kind of have to figure out a fair bit of it on the fly. But it really only took me halfway through that first run. I was like, oh right, the orbs are all doing different stuff. And when
Yeah.
Oh, okay, when I'm right. It's doing the damage. Okay, right.
Yep.
I think it looks like complete trash.
Yeah.
Visually.
Yeah.
I hate the style of the little characters.
Yep.
But you're not really, you're sort of not really ever looking at any of that. You're just lining up your little orb and dropping it down into the pachinko.
Pretty much. Like, there have been games that are like really simple versions of this. Games like Loop Hero, games like Slay the Spire and Inscription, where like it doesn't require a particularly like over the top or refined art style, but they've still delivered a really cool art style. This unfortunately has had no time it doesn't appeal to me at all.
When you
way.
hear that it's
like,
been on PC for a while, it really has that look of something that like one guy made as a bit of a lark, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, this is really cool.
It looks, and I don't think it would literally be, but it has the look of like pre-made, baked in like game maker studio assets type of thing.
Yeah.
That is, that's not a bad observation at all. But despite that, I'm finding it really addictive. I thought I played a couple of runs and was like, oh yeah, that was good to try out. There's something about it though that I keep going back to when I'm just like, in between doing some work or whatever. I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll have a little Peglin.
Maybe I'll get Peglin.
Maybe I'll get a
It's
little
definitely
Peglin going.
got that kind of like Balatro thing of like, if you get on a run where you've just got all the right orbs kind of stacked up there in your little, in your little arsenal, and you've got your like combo of like I think on my first run you get like a permanent
relic
thing that you can pick at the end of the world. So I had like a permanent multi-ball thing going on, which was just racking me up some unbelievable damage points.
It is like really, really similar to Slay the Spire in that regard. Like it literally is Slay the Spire mixed with Peggle. I'm not like, that's not an exaggeration. Basically, every game element from each of those games is combined.
This sounds like
here.
another classic Ben Vanille Tall Tale. It sounds too good to be true, honestly.
This is one of those
I swear.
wind-ups that he does.
I swear, guys. Now you don't have to buy Slay the Spire or Peggle. But it's doing a good job of that. Like, it's not like the thought to combine them is the creative sort of innovation here. Like, and it is fun. I find it, like I said, very, very addictive and very easy to play. And man, it does get rewarding when, like you say, Tommy, you get those multi-ball kind of effects or multipliers. I did finish, like I got to the end of the third world and that is the end and you go back to the start. But I'm pretty sure there's like a persistent save file where each time you finish even the third world, you'll go back and it'll be like, hey, well done. Here's a relic to start you off again.
Cool.
But yeah, I don't know if they will expand it. It does have the look of something that's made by either one person or a very small team. So don't know if there's scope for that, but it's worth a try. It's it's really fun. You're playing it on Switch, I assume?
On Switch, and it's on PC. I don't know if it's on PlayStation and Xbox. Maybe not.
I don't think I saw it in the PlayStation store the other day, but it's definitely PC and Switch, and obviously it runs fine on everything.
Good game.
Peglin. Peglin.
Peglin.
Should we quickly talk about that other thing, or get out? What's the go?
We could save it for next week.
Shall we save it? Shall we have a little sizzle for next week? An exclusive Nintendo preview.
Yeah, I went back into Nintendo. I went twice in 1 week. By the way, our Zelda video from last week, so many people were commenting on it going, oh, this is so cool that you guys finally got some Nintendo access. We've had Nintendo access for ages. We've talked heaps on the show about
we got invited to the Switch launch party. Yeah. Don't you remember when we talked about a helicopter flying past the Nintendo
Yeah.
Switch hands-on event that we were invited to?
How could that ever fall out of your mind?
It's weird to be a big enough fan to be excited for us, but also not quite big enough of a fan to have really paid any attention to any specific things we've said.
Yeah.
I mean, I do the exact same thing about myself and everyone I know at all times. So
Fair.
I'm on Team Commenter as usual.
Yeah.
Well, look, why don't I quickly say it now? So I went out and I played Mario Party Jamboree, which is the new Mario Party game that is out in October. It is I think there's only like 10 of the mini games in there are returning ones, so they are mostly
Right.
new. But you know, at this stage of that series, it's you know, they are reusing a lot of, you know, sort of just tweaking a lot of concepts and stuff.
Yeah, you're still going to be a chef in a restaurant, or you're carrying
Yeah.
too many boxes or whatever.
Right.
Yep. So yeah, we got to play through a little bit of a one of the board games. So we did like a classic. It was us. I took along a friend of the show, Sam Grays O'Gray. He came along with me, and it was us and a guy from a website. And, you know, we're playing Mario Party.
That's
and
so
let me tell you-
vague.
Anonymoushookups.com.
Yeah.
Is that the website where you
He's
found
from-
this guy?
Ashley Martin, yeah.
I wonder if that's
Ashley
a real
Madison,
website. It
you
probably
mean.
is a
Sorry.
domain.
Yeah, I was, you know, we're playing Mario Party, so I'm really, and also I've got a friend there with me, so I'm really carrying on like a pork
Sure.
chop. And I realized subconsciously for a long time, my dream from one of these sessions has been to make it in a negative way into another website's coverage of this
Right.
session.
That'd
Like
be so funny.
I really
Yeah.
would love to have seen on Vooks.net their hands-on preview coverage saying
Yes.
like, unfortunately our experience with the game was marred by a complete cunt who would not stop
Yeah.
riffing over the top of the game.
The whole preview is like that Jeremy Strong interview that tore him apart.
Yes.
Like, this pretentious fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you tell me if you're in the session and you don't know me and this happens, right? So one of the mini games is like you're divided into little teams. The screen's like in 3, and it's sort of like a production line of like one team are doing one thing where they're making the apple juice, and then the other team are like driving the truck of putting the apple juice onto a ship. And then the bit that I was on, you're at the
Onto a
docks
ship?
onto a ship. So the bit that I was at, you're at the
International apple
docks.
juice.
You're
Oh,
getting
yeah.
the apple juice off the ship and then having to like walk it onto a truck. But you've got this like narrow thing where you can't move if you're on the same bit. So you've got to communicate to,
Oh, yeah.
you know, get the apple juice on the truck. So you're
Yeah.
getting it off the ship. And
Behind.
and I said to someone, I said out loud to the room, "Hey man, I don't come down to where you work and knock the apple juice out of your hands." Not bad, right? I really felt like I'd gotten away with something pretty special there, given what I was
Yeah.
referencing in the context that I threw it out in.
Absolutely.
Got a laugh from the Nintendo rep.
Yep.
What would you, if you were?
Did it get a laugh from your good friend Sam?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
Oh,
yeah. Good,
Oh,
good,
yeah.
good.
And then this other person, I'm assuming, because you're not telling this story with your normal hands raised above your head when you tell a story about a time a joke went well, that I mean, I think that's a pretty specific reference that I could imagine someone not knowing if they didn't really care about comedy.
It is a comedy
Yeah.
reference.
Well, look,
yeah.
I will say at the point that I did this, we were sort of this was to Sam and the Nintendo rep, and we were kind of like split off at this point. So we did the board game where we were kind of all playing it, and then they showed us a couple of the online modes, which are the Coupathlon, which is where you're doing these kind of like almost like Tetris 9090 style. You're not doing the like board game sort of stuff. You're doing these weird little kind of challenge modey sort of things to rack up coins, and each coin that you're getting is moving you a space around the board, and you're just trying to complete 5 laps first based on how you perform in these little interim games that are the same every round, and then the big Mario Party style mini game that you do. And then another cool one is called what's it called? It's like it's this again. So instead of a board game, you're in this map where you've got like a giant Godzilla-sized Bowser that's sort of traipsing around, that you and 7 other people are all trying to walk around the city and avoid him and pick up bombs and load them into a cannon to kill him. And so each little round that you do of that goes for like a couple of minutes, and then you'll do altogether like a Mario Party style mini game. One of the Mario Party mini games, and then depending on how well you do in that, you then get items to use when you go back into the Bowser Godzilla bit and do another round of that. And you basically have to try and kill Bowser within, I think it's like 5 rounds that you do of that. And they're really cool. Like I kind of would love to see them with Mario Party at this point, like do like a spin-off thing where they take one of those kinds of ideas that are like the extra little things that they sort of sneak in there on the back end of it and make it its own full game under a new banner, so that there's so many Mario Parties now that I don't know that there's a great need to keep churning them out, even though this was a really fun one. It's like the presentation of these ones on the Switch has been really good. Like they all look really good. The models are all really good. The UI is great, really easy to read, really clear, really snappy. It's kind of got the same thing that one of the other ones did, where there's a mini game that's got food in it, and it's honestly some of the most realistic looking food you'll ever see in a video game. There's like a bit we played where you're cutting up a steak, and it's like, God damn, that looks like a steak out of fucking The Last of Us or something.
Nice.
Just in a Mario Party game for some reason.
It'd be funny if this game comes out and we see the food and it doesn't look very good at all, and you were just very hungry that day.
It's like green, it's rotting.
Yeah, everyone's heads are just turning into full cooked turkeys.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I had a good time with it. I think that honestly, the 2 Mario Parties on the Switch so far have both been really good, and I think this is at least going to be as good as that, if not maybe the best one, maybe the most like cohesive one that they've got on there.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Yeah, it was good. Thanks to Nintendo for having me out there, and also for giving me a leftover show bag from the Nintendo Live event in Sydney. That was just kicking around the office.
Cheers to Nintendo, and cheers to that person who didn't laugh at your joke.
I was going to ask for closure. Did they not laugh?
No, we were in a different segment. We were in a different section at that point. Like so we were doing the online mode.
So why are you mad that they didn't laugh?
My point was more, how would you respond to this if you were a journalist and you didn't know me?
If I was in a different room and didn't hear you say it.
Yeah, if you did hear me say it, though. Funny how.
Yeah. I misunderstood the story. I thought that there was going to be an interaction instead of like, oh boy, I wish a tree had been around to hear me fall in this forest.
Yeah. No, it was a bit of that. It was more just like I was carrying on the whole time. And that comment was what I thought was the high watermark.
Okay.
It's pretty good. I don't mind it.
It's a good high watermark.
Kind of jackassing I was doing when we were just playing the
Probably some sexist stuff.
Yeah.
Nah, well, that apple thing's good banter, mate.
Yeah, it's good bants. It's top shelf bants.
That's bants.
All right, well, that is plenty of bants out of us for 1 week. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for supporting the show if that's something that you do.
Absolutely.
And if not, well, it's time to remedy that. Get onto our Patreon. You can find all our links at filthycasuals.com.au. If you get onto the Patreon, you get a bonus show every week where we talk about movies, TV shows.
That's right. It's called Bonus Bants.
Yes.
Bonus Bants with Benny, Bozzer, and the bitch.
Yeah.
You can decide which one of us is which.
Okay. I think I'll be Bozzer.
I think it's pretty clear.
I'm Benny.
Get on there. Heaps of stuff on the Patreon. We've just launched a couple of new things. There's a new little show once a month on a certain tier. There's also a once a month thing on the lowest tier as well that you get on all the others. So check that out.
Ad-free
episodes as well.
Yeah.
Ad-free apps.
If you don't want to hear, I don't know what people get around the world, but like ads for Open University and I don't know, other relatively harmless things. There's none of that. There's none of that at all on the ad-free episodes.
No
Leave
ads.
No
ads, because I'm Benny when we do the banter bonus pod. So
you can
ads.
Watch us talk over, some gameplay footage from Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom on our YouTube page. That's free.
Yeah.
And, hey, go and comment and be like, yes, another Nintendo exclusive from Filthy Casuals. That'd help Tommy a lot. That'd help his mood.
How boring. You're in there again?
Yeah.
This happens all the time.
I hope they continue to invite you back because of your good humor during the presentation.
All right.
Yes.
That's going to do us for another installment. Thank you very much for joining us. We will see you next time. And as we say here at the end of every episode of Filthy Casuals.
PS5 Pro, more like PS5, probably going to have to sell my bloody kidney. That is how you do bands.
This guy's ruined the playthrough.